Hi, my name is Joannis, and today's read is called I'm Not Reading That Paragraph, or I'm Not Reading That Book. The typical response of a toxic person, alternatively one with low emotional intelligence. It appears that this sort of response gives them a false sense of ego inflation, or perhaps they think it makes them sound mature, when unfortunately, it exposes quite the opposite. Maybe they prefer a message that better matches their mental capacity, such as the letter K. I find it to be such a sign of weakness when someone feels the need to stoop low at an attempt to demean you for the length of your writing or the precious time you took to care enough to communicate carefully. What they fail to realize is that the only person they are truly demeaning is themselves. Now, I don't think it's the length that bothers them as much as either the fact that it would take emotional or mental effort that they don't have the capacity for, or what they read addressed things so tactfully, respectfully, accurately, and intelligently that it disturbed something inside of them. In other words, it hit a nerve. And because they have nothing valid to say, or they know they couldn't sound this good even if they tried, they lash out in a desperate attempt to inflate their ego by resorting to bring you down. I grew up not only writing and mailing letters to friends, cousins, and pen pals, but also with parents who encouraged writing. Sometimes they gave us newspaper articles to read and summarize during the summer when we were off from school. For fun, my dad and I would go to the vocabulary section in the Reader's Digest magazine and review or learn new words. I loved vocabulary tests in elementary school, and I remember my dad nicknamed me Murder, She Wrote, based on the show titled the same, as I loved writing and using my parents' typewriter. For me, it became a powerful tool because I was very shy, and it allowed me to better express myself in a way I couldn't quite access verbally. It was also a love language for me because I felt I could be more sentimental on paper than through verbal expression. My first experience with receiving that sort of toxic response was with my first adult relationship. If we had a disagreement in which verbal communication wasn't going anywhere or would often escalate to things like him resorting to yelling, name-calling, slamming, or throwing things, then it seemed to make sense that writing would, at least in some cases, be a better option for healthy communication. After all, you can take the time to write things calmly, which allows you to better word things, and if you make a mistake, you can rewrite or improve it. It would also mean no interruptions when you are trying to explain something. Unfortunately, here I learned that with certain people, this is not the case, and at that young age, I did not understand why I was, in a sense, being punished for thinking I was doing something good or taking a healthier approach. It's as if he felt offended and would not only say things like, I'm not reading that book, but would also say, I tore it up and trashed it. At the time, it was so hurtful knowing that for me, it was done with love and care in an attempt or an effort to amicably resolve issues. Needless to say, that relationship turned out to be abusive in far more ways than this example I shared, and eventually ended, thank goodness. I started to heal and vowed to never again be with someone abusive. Sure enough, the relationship I experienced after that one was with a partner who never yelled and valued writing. They understood the power and benefit of communicating through writing. On the occasions we wrote, whether it was loving expressions for pouring our hearts out or writing to work through a misunderstanding, the difference made me realize it was never about the writing or the length of writing. It was about the level of emotional intelligence and maturity. On the occasions I wrote a message, it was never demeaned or considered long, even though some messages were definitely long. It was always followed by an acknowledgement such as, I received your message and will take the time to read and respond soon, showing me the value of acknowledgement and taking the time to read, comprehend, and respond with a quality response. No doubt, all the details that matter in healthy connections. The response I would receive would always address everything that was mentioned, followed by their thoughts. I thought, wow, what a breath of fresh air. To communicate with ease, no unnecessary yelling, name-calling, or insults, and a sort of never-ending cycle of unresolved conflict. On the contrary, I was complimented for being so good at writing and expressing myself this way. The difference was day and night. This particular lesson was a living example of how toxic people typically paint the picture as others always being the problem, when in fact it's almost always them. And if you are not careful who you surround yourself with or who you choose as a partner, it can be tricky. With manipulation and abuse, you will often find yourself in the wrong and having to constantly apologize. This, in effect, makes you suppress parts of yourself, walk on eggshells, or dim your light. In such a case, you essentially lose sight of who you are and the beautiful and positive attributes you have that would otherwise be appreciated or praised with the right people and in the right spaces. Now, on the very rare occasions that I encounter this response, I just find it amusing, and the whole reason I was recently reminded of this kind of mentality was when I left a paragraph-length comment on a post, thus far receiving nearly 200 likes, which, to be clear, I don't much care about the likes as much as I care about the message being understood. I received an overwhelming amount of responses telling me how incredibly well written my comment was, and that many people felt they had nothing to add to what I said, and I even received a compliment saying that I should be a narrator. Which is funny because I just recently started narrating on top of my writing. I only received one comment which gave that toxic response, and which made me laugh. My thoughts seeing this now just make me think of how people who respond this way don't realize they basically expose their level of immaturity. and emotional intelligence. I am way beyond responding or associating with that anymore. And so, of course, at this point, that gets fully ignored. With experience, identifying insecure or toxic people becomes easier because they tend to behave or react in the same manner. Recognizing this allows you to disengage, ignore, or establish necessary boundaries. Writing and reading are valuable and will always be a healthy form of communication. Don't ever let anyone tell you otherwise. These days, and for many years now, I don't associate with the "I'm not reading that paragraph or that book" kind of people. I prefer people who can handle depth and meaningful communication, be it verbal or through writing. I don't and will never feel bad about the length or my ability to write with depth. And trust that when those in your circle have this capacity, it's never demeaned. It's appreciated and never considered long. Beyond writing alone, some may even be gifted with the ability to tell a story, convey a message or a feeling. To be able to write with tact in a way that verbally soothes, caresses, ignites, or validates emotions in others is a beautiful thing. I enjoy having the ability to articulate myself through writing, and if I should so choose, I may unapologetically write with length, depth, and substance. The reality is, not everyone can handle that. So keep being your beautiful self and stay toxic free.